Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for taking the time out to come and join us today on the webcast, which we've put together for you around Skype for Business and upgrading to Skype for Business. We've got a couple of presenters on the call today. So there's myself, Ian Stretton. I am the Practice Manager for Unified Communications here at Risual. I've also got Corey Goodchild, who is one of my top consultants in my Unified Comms practice, as well as Mark Vale, who is another one of my top consultants. Sorry, it slipped out of my head. Thank you, Corey. Mark Vale, who is, again, another one of my top consultants in my UC team. So over the last few weeks and obviously few months, we've been working with Microsoft on Skype for Business. And more recently, since the general release of Skype for Business, we've been working with a couple of customers on upgrading their internal Lync 2013 platforms to Skype for Business. We've also done our own internal risual upgrade as well to Skype for Business, so eating our own dog food. So we thought we'd put this presentation together, or webcast for you together today, to kind of go through our experiences, what we learned from it, some real world obviously experience in there as well, and some gotchas that we kind of came across, just to kind of give you the feel as to what you can be looking for as you're going through your upgrades, or hopefully getting us involved to help you with those upgrades. So let's move through. I think most people on the webcast at the moment are existing Risual customers, so you'll probably have seen this slide before. But essentially, Risual is broken down into two main sides of the business. So we've got the consulting area, in which we plan and implement with customers the solutions and designs for different areas of Microsoft technology. And then we've got the services side to the business, who look after, support and maintain and optimize those services moving forward. So as you can see there from the slide, in the consulting area we've got the business group who look after strategic consulting, look after the engagement management and the project management of the engagements that we go through, and we have architecture in there as well. So again, we're a Microsoft Gold partner in a number of different strategies in a number of different areas. So bringing all that together is that business group. Then from the more subject matter expert side of the consulting, we've got each of the different practices: business productivity, unified comms, and messaging, cloud infrastructure, and application development. And as we touched on there, we've got the services side, where we've got managed services that will also look after, optimize, and proactively and reactively look after your systems for you, potentially as well. In terms of the webcast today, so obviously we've got a few slides to go through. Hopefully in the slide window you can see that there's a Q&A tab. So if you do have any questions on any of the slides, or any questions for the presenters as we go through the deck, if you would like to submit your questions in the Q&A, I will keep those, and where I feel it's appropriate on that particular slide, I will put your questions to the presenters. Or what we'll also do at the end is we'll go back to the Q&A at the end of the presentation, and we'll look to answer all of the questions all up anyway. Anything that we clearly can't answer, or we don't know the answer to at the moment, then we'll take that feedback, and we'll look to come back to you with an email directly. If there's questions that you can think of after we've finished the presentation and everything's closed down, if you'd like to email through to inquiries@Risual, then we'll take that email and pass that into the relevant people within the teams. Today's webcast will also be recorded, and what we'll do is after this we'll put that onto our YouTube channel, and then we'll look to send out to everybody on the webcast a link to that recording, so that you can review it again at your own leisure. And obviously we'll also put that out on our Twitter feed and LinkedIn feeds and Facebook sites, etc. as well. Okay, so oh, hang on a second. So just to touch on a fact as well, we did do a webcast not too long ago about Skype for Business, sort of all up about what new features are coming in Skype for Business, what it would bring to the party for you, and that particular webcast, as you can see, the URL is on the screen. Again, if you want to take a note of that now, or obviously you'll be able to see that when we send the links out to you. I think there's also a list if you get registered for our YouTube channel. So if you go onto YouTube, look for Risual Limited. We do have a YouTube channel, so you can register yourselves to those so that you can get all the updates as we release our webcasts. So we do have that webcast that we recorded about 3 or 4 weeks ago now, I think it was, that you can review and watch that back.
Hi, Ian. It's Mike Henshaw. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, hi, Mike.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm just seeing a message the slide couldn't be downloaded, so I'm just going to drop out and come back in again.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Mike. Okay, so just to pick back up again, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Corey Goodchild, who's going to start and go through the slides. First, starting off with what are the upgrade methods?
So yeah, thanks Ian. So good afternoon all. Thanks for taking the time out of your afternoons to join us on this webcast. As Ian said, we originally recorded a webcast on what is Skype for Business and are you ready? So I do encourage you to go back and have a look at that. So this is the first of a follow-up series of webcasts that we'll be presenting, just to discuss some of the main topic points with the introduction of Skype for Business. And as you can see on the slide, today we'll be looking at the in-place upgrade methods. So from an upgrade perspective, we have multiple ways of getting from old world to new world. As you can see on the screen, we've got the traditional side-by-side migration method, and that involves basically spinning up a new infrastructure alongside your existing deployment. So let's say, for example, you're currently using Lync Server 2010. In-place upgrade isn't actually supported from 2010 to Skype for Business, so in that instance you'd be looking at a side-by-side migration in which you'll stand up a new infrastructure on new hardware for Skype for Business, new certificates, new DNS records, new servers, etc. And we follow the traditional method of taking users from A to B. Now, if you're running on Lync Server 2013, we do have the option to perform an in-place upgrade. Now, what the actual in-place upgrade is, it's a way for you to take your existing hardware and basically upgrade that in place to Skype for Business. So you'll see during the process the actual server installation will remove components, reinstall new components, and the main benefits that we see of taking this approach is to basically reutilize existing DNS records, save costs on certificates. There's no actual infrastructural or environmental changes to upgrade what you have at the moment to Skype for Business. So we're really seeing it as a real beneficial way of getting from old world to new world technology. Now it is in place over the hardware, so there is going to be some downtime for the users, and there will be some gotchas and considerations that we'll be discussing throughout the rest of the slide deck. But in a nutshell, it's basically the latest and greatest of getting from A to B, and it saves you the hassle of having to provision new infrastructure, new hardware, new DNS records, obtaining new certificates, etc. And we can use the existing environment and take that to Skype for Business. Now, one thing that I do want to call out, and the fact that Skype for in-place upgrade isn't a remediation action. So if you're currently experiencing any issues with your existing Lync estate, if you've not quite deployed it to best practice, then it's always good to remediate before you start thinking about performing the in-place upgrade, because any issues that you're currently experiencing, they will follow you through to Skype for Business as you move forward with your upgrade. Thanks, Ian.
So just on that, Corey, to reconfirm then, because I think you touched on it, but just to make it very clear for the guys on the call, is that we can still do the traditional side-by-side migration. That is there you have to do that with a Lync 2010 currently on-premise solution to be able to go to Skype for Business. That has to be a side-by-side. But you can also do a side-by-side for Lync 2013 as well, can't you?
Correct. So with regards to the side-by-side migrations, there are several scenarios that you'd more than likely want to look at the side-by-side over the in-place upgrade. And as Ian said, so Lync Server 2010 doesn't support the in-place upgrade method. So one way of getting from Lync Server 2010 to Skype for Business would be to do a side-by-side to Lync Server 2013 and then do an in-place upgrade over 2013. But to save that extra additional hardware, you may as well just take the jump from Lync Server 2010 side by side, Skype for Business, and the way you go from there. With regards to the other requirements for side-by-side migration, you might also want to look at it if your existing Lync server estate is running on Server 2008 R2. So if you've deployed Lync Server 2013 and your host operating systems are Windows Server 2008 R2, you may wish to consider the side-by-side migration approach to Skype for Business, and that's due to a limitation around the Windows Fabric. So the Windows Fabric is basically the underlying technology that the front-end pools utilize to basically distribute users across the different servers within a pool and maintain that high availability. Now with Server 2008 R2, we are limited to Windows Fabric V1, which isn't the latest and greatest. V2 is the latest and is supported on Server 2012 and Server 2012 R2. So if you are running, so just to confirm, in summary, if you are running Lync Server 2013 on Server 2008 R2, we would recommend that you look at the side-by-side migration approach, and that's purely because the underlying operating system will have some limitations around the Windows Fabric that basically maintains your high availability on your front-end pool.
Yeah. Okay. So the key thing that I'm taking away from that, Corey, is that even though we've got an in-place option to upgrade here, the key, as is always with these things, is planning as well, right?
Exactly,
so just kind of working it through from start to finish, making sure that we do have everything in place to be able to do an in-place upgrade, or if not, then we always have the traditional side-by-side method available. So
most definitely,
so the key to it is plan, and then plan it a bit more, and then do it.
Yeah, I think the key point to take away as well is the fact that in-place upgrade, it just really isn't a remediation action. So it's important to make sure, let's plan it properly, but it's important to make sure that your existing estate is in a healthy operational state before moving forward with this approach.
Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. So obviously, we just wanted to make that point clear at the beginning, really, that you do need to plan it, no matter what environment you've got currently. The best thing you can do is to plan it first and then move forward from there. But with that in mind, obviously we have done a couple of in-place upgrades at the moment. So, and this webcast is about doing an in-place upgrade. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Mark Vale to the presentation as well, who's about the next slide. I won't keep doing introductions, I promise. But we'll actually then, from now, we'll go through and actually talk about our experiences doing an in-place upgrade. So, Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to talk through some prerequisites. Like with anything, Microsoft, there's always a long list of prerequisites that have to be fulfilled before we go and click the update or install button. Luckily or fortunately with Skype for Business, these are there are very few compared to previous deployments, because SFB leverages all the existing Lync prerequisites, but like I said, there are a couple that needs to be considered. The main one really is that if you're using SQL 2012, you need to make sure that Service Pack 1 at least across all instances, including your RTC local, so that includes all your front-end servers, all your directors and edge servers. They all need to 2012 Service Pack 1 at least, otherwise the upgrade will fail.
So, Mark, does that include any SQL Express, or is that mainly just the
Yes,
SQL?
it's SQL Express, full SQL, any SQL, any back-end server running SQL has to be 2012 SP1. So, unfortunately, it's not part of the in-place upgrade download, so it's not part of the ISO that you download from your subscription. You have to go and get that from Microsoft Downloads and patch it independently. Obviously, you need to take into consideration the downtime requirements for that patching requirement. The other requisite didn't come about until we actually hit the in-place upgrade option is that we need at least 32 gigabytes of free storage space on your Lync installation partition. Otherwise, the in-place upgrade will fail. So there's an additional consideration about overhead on that. What else is there? When you first install your Skype for Business components, you'll need a server or workstation that hasn't got any Lync management tools installed. This purely is so you can publish the Skype for Business topology using the Skype for Business topology builder. That won't install on any Lync server running management tools. If you're running Windows 2008 R2, as Corey said, we seriously recommend you consider upgrading to Windows 2012 R2. But Windows Server 2012 R2 is still currently supported for Skype for Business. It will be the last update that it will become supported under. Any future roll-ups may take 2008 R2 off the supported list. The additional requirements, there are a couple of hot fixes required for each OS edition. These will be available we can send a link out for these, but in a nutshell, for 2012 R2 allows the remote execution of code, which basically allows one Lync for Business server to execute code on another Skype for Business server over Windows RM. For 2012, there's a patch to the performance logs and alerts collectors, which extends the lifetime of the collector. It times out after, I think it was 72 hours. They've extended that to infinitum. And for 2012 R2, there's a patch that resolves a potential crash of IAS 8 in certain scenarios. These patches require a reboot of each server once they're applied. If you don't apply these KB patches when you run the in-place upgrade, it will install them for you. But what will happen is that during the in-place upgrade, the installer will prompt you for a reboot. And in that scenario, ensure that your Lync services are all stopped, and you use the disable CS computer with a scorch parameter to ensure that your Lync services don't restart on reboot. So
I'm guessing as part of that, Mark, you've got to consider that there's elements of downtime. Obviously, we can mitigate some of that if you've got multiple servers in different pools, etc. Like you've got an enterprise class solution, that we can kind of mitigate some of the downtime, but there will still be an element of downtime that needs to be considered.
Yeah, purely for setting up the prerequisites. The actual when you start in-place upgrading, if you've got an ideal scenario, you can do an in-place upgrade with minimal impact to the users, with no downtime, providing you've got sufficient capacity and multiple pools. So when you move or when you start an in-place upgrade on a front-end pool, you must first migrate your users that are associated to, let's say it's FE1, you need to migrate them to FE2, or migrate them all to a second pool, and then upgrade one pool at a time. So when you upgrade all your front-end servers in your first enterprise pool, you can restart them, bring the Skype for Business services online, migrate your users from pool 1, and then continue your in-place upgrade on pool 2.
And just to add to that there, Mark, as well, with one of the prerequisites, one thing that we found that when we're performing the in-place upgrade process across the front-end servers, we actually need to make sure that the Windows Firewall service is running. If the Windows Firewall service is not running, the actual in-place upgrade process will fail. It's not something that's been very well documented, but it is something that we were burnt by on our first in-place upgrade, but it was resolved very quickly by just starting the service and then performing the process again.
Cool. The other thing to consider is when you first publish your Skype for Business topology, that action could take anything up to 2 hours. And when I spoke to Microsoft about this is expected behavior depending on how large your Lync deployment is. And when they benchmarked it, it was 2 hours for a 12-node front-end pool with 80,000 users. So if you're under that, it's probably going to take a lot less, but just be prepared for potentially that publishing of the first topology to take a while. So the next question was, do all servers need to be upgraded at the same time? Essentially, I'm going to say no, but for your front ends, you need to upgrade all the front ends in the pool before you can start using that pool for Skype for Business services. However, you can coexist your edge pools, your persistent chat servers, your Office web app servers, any Exchange all the other Lync and associated Lync servers you can coexist with a Skype for Business front end pool. Obviously, we recommend that you plan to upgrade all your Lync servers to Skype for Business, but essentially you don't have to do them all at in the same maintenance window. So for the end user experience, are they affected in certain scenarios? Yes. In other scenarios, no. If you've got 2 enterprise pools and you migrate your users to the second pool, your Lync second pool on your upgrade, then the only downtime that they experience is a quick sign out and sign back in of the Lync client once they've moved pools. If you're using standard edition server and you haven't got enough capacity to stand up a second standard edition server to migrate your users across to do an in-place upgrade on a standard edition server, the users will be down for the entirety of the upgrade, and that upgrade time for an in-place upgrade can take anything between 1 hour and 3 hours to complete, so just bear that in mind.
Thank you, Mark. So just to continue on with some of those considerations, as Mark said, we can upgrade front-end pools and coexist with Lync 2013 technology, and one of those examples is survivable branch appliances. So at the moment, survivable branch appliances are running on Server 2008 R2, and they're actually running the Lync Server 2013 software. So until Microsoft actually released the components for Skype for Business on those survivable branch appliances, though that's an example of a pool that will actually coexist with Skype for Business whilst running Lync Server 2013. For those of you that are running on SBAs, then the general process to get those managing those whilst performing the in-place upgrade is to actually move the branch users that are on the SBA to another pool, remove the association between the SBA and your front-end pool, perform the in-place upgrade on your pool, and then reassociate your survivable branch appliance once you've actually performed the in-place upgrade from 2013 to Skype for Business. And then once you've reassociated, you can actually move those branch users back out to that survivable branch appliance. Another consideration during the in-place upgrade is your archiving and monitoring store. Now, with the introduction of Skype for Business, we've also introduced support for SQL Server 2014 Always On. So that's both failover cluster instances and always on availability groups. One consideration that you're going to need to make during your planning phases is what you actually want to do with your archiving and monitoring stores. Now, if you've got them associated and you perform an in-place upgrade, they will simply the actual process will simply upgrade the archiving and monitoring store on the existing SQL instance that's hosting it. Whereas you can choose at this point to now start associating with SQL 2014, so you might want to consider moving your databases and your instances across to SQL 2014 and then reassociating with a new instance to leverage the latest and greatest. But it's not mandatory to upgrade your archiving and monitoring stores, so you can disassociate them and start fresh, or you can keep them associated during the in-place upgrade process and upgrade them to the latest database schema version table. With regards to your existing PSTN gateways, there's no actual additional considerations or configuration that are required. The one consideration that I would say to make is to make sure that your vendor has planned support for Skype for Business. From a configuration perspective, once we perform the in-place upgrade, there's no actual additional configuration required. But from a supportability perspective, we would always advise you to speak to your SBC vendor and actually just basically get the latest supportability statement from the vendor themselves, and whether they've got any plans for Skype for Business and what these timescales are around that. And the same also applies to your SIP trunks as well. So just make sure that if you're using things like direct SIP trunking, with, say, for example, Cisco Call Manager, just making sure that the Call Manager estate is supported and ready to go for Skype for Business. And then finally, any trusted application servers. So if you're using things like Exchange, Outlook Web App, Instant Messaging Presence integration, which is where you'll actually see Skype for Business presence within Outlook Web Access, then just consider those those kind of topologies. For an example, Exchange 2007, that will be the last edition that's actually supported with Skype, well, supported to a certain degree with Skype for Business. So consider your trusted application servers. They could be things like contact center applications. So if anybody's running the Geoman or the Clarity Connect contact centers out there, it's just a case of making sure that the supportability is going to be there moving forward, and for any other trusted application servers that you might have defined in your topology.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
No problem.
So for environmental considerations...
Just before we move... Sorry. Before we move and carry on, I just wanted to, again, just remind everybody on the call that we've got the Q&A, if you like. So obviously, as the guys are going through, if you do have any questions, fire them into the Q&A section, and clearly I'll those questions for you on your behalf. Sorry, Mark, carry on.
No, it's okay. Most people probably like this slide. Obviously, there's some environmental considerations to consider when you're deploying Lync, but for Skype for Business, if you've already got a Lync 2013 deployment, the environmental considerations are very little and far between. So most Active Directory admins will be pleased to know that there's no Schema extension to Skype for Business. It'll leverage the Lync 2013 existing Schema, so that doesn't need to be run when you do an in-place upgrade. For Exchange Unified Messaging, Skype for Business Service still supports using Exchange UM on Exchange 2003.
2007 SP3.
Sorry, yeah, that's it. Sorry, my bad. 2007, Service Pack 3. But this Skype for Business Server 2015, this will be the date or the last version that will support Exchange 2007. So you guys should be moving to at least 2010 or 2013 or even Office 365. If you use Outlook Web App and you use instant messaging and presence status in Outlook Web App, that will work out of the box. If you've currently got that set up, it will use the Lync 2013 setups. For the web application proxy, all the Skype for Business URLs are the same as the Lync 2013 URLs, so there's no reverse proxy requirements, no additional certificates, no additional DNS records. It will leverage what is already in your current topology. And the same really for network security, firewall ports, static routes, and all that good stuff. All that's in. There's no additional port or firewall port requirements if you're doing an in-place upgrade.
Yeah, so if you are doing an in-place upgrade, there's no additional firewall ports. But then once you do get to the Skype for Business way of working, there is actually an additional port requirement for the Access Edge server to be able to talk outbound over TCP port 443. So as it stands at the moment, port 443 Access Edge is purely inbound only, but for that Skype for Business directory search, which we touched on in our original Skype for Business webcast, that does require port 443 TCP outbound from the Access Edge service.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
So just to recap on some of the gotchas that we've seen, as Mark said, each of your front-end servers is going to need to be running SQL 2012 SP1. It's not a part of the actual in-place upgrade process, so there is some preparation work required on your front-end servers. They also need 32 gigabytes of free disk space on the installation partition. And then what isn't listed on here, but we did get burnt with it this week, was the Windows Firewall service also needs to be running on your front-end servers. So we'll make sure that we get the deck updated before the link is
on the next slide.
Sorry. All right, okay. Third point along, so the Lync room system. So if you are running Lync room system, you actually are required to remove the admin portal application from your front-end servers prior to performing the in-place upgrade. If you do not remove it, the application simply will not work. You will then have to remove it and then deploy the Skype for Business Lync room system administration portal once you've completed the in-place upgrade process. Mark, do you want to touch quickly on the normalization bug transfers from Exchange Auto Attendance?
Okay, so if you're using Exchange Auto Attendance, there's a bug that come about in the early days of the general release, whereby if you use your menu navigation if you use Exchange Auto Attendance for menu navigation and you want to transfer calls to Skype for Business users or response groups, the Skype for Business front end service don't properly normalize and match the numbers. And what this causes is essentially Exchange will place a call over your SIP trunk to your SIP trunk provider because it's not internally routable. Obviously, if you're using real numbers and they've got DIDs, then your SIP provider will then send that call straight back down to your Skype for Business service and it'll get processed normally. However, if you're using non-routable, so if you're using plus 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., to route to your internal response groups, then simply the call will just fail and get dropped. Microsoft have released or have acknowledged this as a bug. They've replicated it in their lab, and a fix is due for Q3 2015, so anytime soon. It's built for the next update to Skype for Business server. There is a current workaround for it, but it's currently, I wouldn't personally consider it. What they say, stand up a Lync 2013 front end and migrate your problem contacts to that. So in my opinion, you're better waiting for the Q3 fix before you do an in-place upgrade if this certain scenario fits your business process.
Yeah, I mean, it is a pretty significant bug, to be fair. If you are using DDIs on your response groups, then the issue that you're going to see is the fact that each call to transfer from an Exchange auto attendant to a response group is actually going to be using 2 channels, because Lync is sending it out to your service provider, and then they're sending it back in because it's a routable DDI. USB-C, your gateways are actually going to be using 2 channels to Lync, so it is a significant issue, and we would urge you to kind of consider what you're using. And again, it falls back to the planning exercise and just making sure that you understand your topology, where you're going from, what you'd like to go to, and understanding what you're using, and if there's any issues around there, like there is with the Exchange auto attendants at the moment. There is, and again on the slide, moving conference directories, there is an additional bug that we found. This basically exists when you're moving your conference directories. So for users to dial in, when you dial into a conference, enter your DDI and then enter a PIN and ID, this actually leverages the conference directories. Now, if you are moving the conference directory from 2013 to Skype for Business, a general best practice and recommendation that we would make is to always use the latest management tools anyway. But there has been some instances where customers have tried to move the conference directory using the 2013 management tools to Skype for Business, and in that instance they've found that they've lost data. So the actual end user experience on that is once it's time for a scheduled conference that a user has put together and all of the participants are trying to dial into that conference, they may find out that the conference ID is not recognized and won't be able to join that conference. So it's critical to make sure that once it's more so along the side-by-side approach, because your conference directories will be handled in place if you do the in-place upgrade. But if you are doing a side-by-side, it is important to make sure that you use the Skype for Business management tools to move your conference directories. And then finally, to actually perform the in-place upgrade process, you do need a Windows 7 or 8 server 2008 12 box to install the Skype for Business management tools onto. You can't put the Skype for Business management tools onto any server that has already got the Lync 2013 components installed.
Okay, thanks, Corey. So just to continue with the gotchas, what I found when performing an in-place upgrade on an Edge server, we needed .NET Framework 3.5 feature, which appears to be a bit of a backward step, but it's required nevertheless. Also, as Corey said, Windows Firewall obviously needs to be turned on. Even if you're not using it, the service needs to be started. Otherwise, the upgrade will fail. The other big thing is that the company phone number normalization rules that you usually put in your AB files in your shared file store, that's now been removed and it's been replaced with a new commandlet. And I think Corey's just gone through this. So
yeah, for anybody that's actually handled the company phone number normalization rules text file, you'll know that I'll put it more politically, you'll welcome the new command that's been introduced in Skype for Business. So we no longer leverage the company phone number normalization rules text file. It's just a mouthful in itself, so I'll be glad that I don't have to mention it too many times anymore. But basically what that is if you've got in Active Directory, there might be different variations of how users have got telephone numbers stored in their telephone number fields, office phone number fields, etc. But when we actually install Skype for Business, it performs a replication and it dumps all of this information into the address book. Now, if Skype for Business doesn't know actually how to normalize those numbers, so let's say, for example, you've got an AD user, John Smith, and he has a telephone number set as extension, the word EXT, letters EXT 263. Lync doesn't actually know how to normalize that. So what you need to do is, in Lync 2013, update this text file to include a regular expression that actually normalizes that extension XXX to a routable number in E164 format. Now, with Skype for Business, we actually no longer use that text file. They're actually first-class citizen commandlets now that actually put in those translation patterns for us. So you'll be happy to know that there is an import command. So if you've got an extensive text file, you can simply import that text file, and Skype for Business will handle that for you and basically recreate those regular expressions using the commandlets that are required. Or you can create them on a one-by-one basis yourself, recreate them, and give them more distinguishable names, because if you do run the import command, it actually does assign them random GUID names that aren't really distinguishable when you're actually performing administration. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I found that when I've done my in-place upgrades, it's easier for me to create a PowerShell script that basically references the old text file and re-imports them that way, rather than letting the system handle itself, because it just means moving forward, I can easily identify which regular expression pattern relates to which code, basically.
Cool, thanks. And the other gotcha that we found is that if you've got multiple front-end servers, your web services will be configured with Kerberos authentication, and you'll have a user account in your Active Directory that's assigned for this purpose. When you do an in-place upgrade, that assignment to the web services gets removed. So once you've completed the Skype for Business upgrade on your front ends, you have to reassign the Kerberos account to your web services.
Thanks, Mark. So yeah, pretty much that. Okay. So that covers the in-place upgrade process for us. I think Ian wanted to step in and make a few words there. But in terms of how Risual can help you, I mean, you can see some of the relationships that we've got up on the board there. So from Gamma to Clarity Consulting for contact centers, Geoman, Sonos telephony gateways. We've got a wide range of the ecosystem devices, so Polycom, Jabra, Sennheiser, Plantronics, and then from a load balancing perspective, we've got the CAMP appliances as well. So yeah, that pretty much brings us to the end of our in-place upgrade. Ian, I don't know if you want to add a few more words, just to top and tail.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mark and Corey, first and foremost, for going through and presenting all those findings. I think, just for me sitting back and listening to that, there's so much work that these guys have done on labs that they've set up themselves to go through these in-place upgrades, and potentially onto customer sites as well, where we've gone through these early adopters on Skype for Business. So we're finding information out all the time. This is the first of many webcasts that we're looking to do on Skype for Business. So keep listening to us, keep joining the webcasts, and obviously if you've got any questions at the moment, then please feel free to fire them into the Q&A. You can tell that these guys really know their stuff. Well, hopefully if you haven't got that from the webcast, then come talk to us even more, and we'll blow your minds even more on the amount of stuff that these guys know. So just moving on to sort of next steps, like I say, please feel free to ask some questions, because we haven't had any at the moment, so now's your opportunity to get those questions in. But while we're waiting for those questions, some next steps and any more information from Risual, then obviously if you email into inquiries, contact your account managers for everybody that's a customer of Risual at the moment. We'll obviously be happy to help. Slight typo on here, because obviously we've got a Skype for Business event that we did back in April. But basically, if you look out on our Risual website risual.com/events, if you look onto that website, you'll see all the up-and-coming events that we're looking to do on Skype for Business in particular, but also, of course, for all of the other technologies. We've also got an offering which we're kind of throwing out there as well to anybody that's on the webcast or anybody that's listening to it for a free half-day pre-sales value assessment. So what we like to look and cover on there is it's predominantly focused around Skype for Business, and it's also predominantly focused on deploying voice in particular and telephony as part of Skype for Business, and how you can hopefully save some money by doing that compared to the traditional telephony methods. But we can also use that for other assessments as well. So I am a presence, messaging, working out by upgrading to the latest versions, how that's going to affect your business and give you an assessment around that. So that's a free half-day pre-sales that we'd offer for you. And I think from our recommendations, it's just a case of just go for it, isn't it, guys? You've got the original deployment services. You've got people like Corey, Mark, that's part of my team that can come and help you with the design and planning of these solutions, and hopefully moving that into the build and the test areas as well. But there's lots of support, lots of guidance. Obviously, we can help you with all of it as well, and then we've got the risual support services that can help to maintain those solutions for you moving forward as well. One last point as well for those that are doing potentially Office 365 or have got Skype for Business through their Office 365 tenancy. There's potential options there around fast-track funding streams as well, so getting some money back from Microsoft. I know that doesn't happen very often, but there are schemes out there that can help with the deployment and planning of these upgrades. Okay, so we do have a couple of questions that have just come in, which is great, so thank you, Karen, for submitting those. So first question out to the guys is, on the front-end server, just for information, does the upgrade automatically install the SQL Express version required?
No, so as
I'll
part
take
of...
that one. Go on, Corey.
I beat you. I beat you. Hi, Karen. So as part of the preparation tasks required on the front end servers, you do actually have to manually install SQL Express SP1, or well, SP2 is out now, so you may as well save yourself some maintenance and get SP2 on there. But yeah, it is a manual process, so there is some downtime whilst you provision that local SQL Express copy before the in-place upgrade process, and it is manually done.
Mark, did you want to add anything to that?
No, that's fine. I'm put in my place.
No worries. Okay, cool. Anybody else with any other questions? Obviously, get them in there quick. So just to finish off the webcast and to bring it to a bit of a close, so obviously, again, we've touched on it a few times, but talk to your account managers at Risual. Drop onto the risual.com website for further information about our services if you're not aware of what we do already. We've also got the Risual blogs website where Mark, Corey, and a number of the UC guys will actively blog about things that they're finding out there in the real world. Not just on UC, of course, there are other guys as well that are from our support teams that regularly blog on that site. And then finally, we've got the ucstore.co.uk as well. So that's a Risual owned website, and you can buy devices, equipment, headsets, handsets, etc. from that site that are all Microsoft and Lync accredited. So from our partners. So just to finish off, any final questions? So we'll give it a second or two just to see if anybody is posting anything up there. If not, thank you very much for your time. Like I say, this has been recorded, so we will get that distributed out to our YouTube channel. And please look out on the websites for our forthcoming events. Thank you very much.
Thank
you, Mark. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.